Hey everyone. Okay, thanks for watching, and what we're going to do here is actually do a little bit of, we're going to talk a little bit about how to kind of style your sheets or style your site away from the kind of nuts and bolts. You know, we talked about, the box model and how margins and paddings affect different divs as well as how they affect each other. And now what we're going to do is kind of focus on what you can do to dress the site up a little bit from a visual aspect of not only fonts, colors, but also the way that you lay out backgrounds of your content and things like that. All right, so we're going to start here with our template. Now I've done a couple of things already, and one of the things I want to talk about is actually in the index file we've called in, I've grabbed a couple of Google web fonts, which is just the greatest thing that's happened over the last couple of years, is having access to web fonts, so you're not stuck with the same Arial or Helvetica or whatever. You've got more options. Okay, and you have one link call, which is really nice. It calls to the API, the CSS for the font, for the web fonts, and then you just simply put them into your style sheet as you would any other font style. So this is actually loading all these fonts into the page as soon as your document loads. And then I created a template up here so I can just copy and paste, a line, and it will actually put it, it'll save me some typing. All right, so these are the ones that I've called in, and we're going to look at one called Overlock, and that's the one that I've put in there. All right, so if we scroll down to our content section and our scrolling text inside of it, you'll see the Overlock is the font there, as well as our nav. Here we go. The vertical nav, our hyperlinks are all the Overlock and cursive font. All right, so when you look at it, this is the same as these. It's also the same color, which is always a good key, and it's a color that I picked out of the blue that's in the background. Our H1 tag is a different font, but it's using the same color as the background of the nav. So these are the kind of things that you want to think about. You want to tie in colors that are already in the site and use them in several locations, but without going into having 18 different colors on the site. 3 to 5 basic colors in the site, all matching, is a good way to tie it all together, and that's kind of the whole beauty behind style sheets. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at a couple of my favorite little tools, and one's called Border Radius, and it's border-radius.com. And what it does is it gives you the option of seeing what you're doing live. All right. So if you change a value here, say the border radius of 25, you'll see all 4 corners will route instantly to 25, and this is your code you just copied into your CSS sheet, which is nice because you can also tell it whether you want the WebKit or CSS3 to keep you up to compliance. I usually use all 3 of them. There's no reason not to. All right. So what we do is, what we're going to do here is actually we're going to make this our content div a border radius, and we're also going to add a gradient over here from the ColorZilla gradient editor. All right. So one thing that you'll notice, by default, it's going to give you rounded corners on each side. However, with this content div, it's going to, with a scroll bar, the scroll bar rides on top of everything. All right. So you're not going to see the gradient curves in there underneath it unless you're on a div that does not have a scroll bar. All right. So in this instance, if we wanted to take those right-hand curves out of there, we can do that just by hitting 0 on both of them. But you'll notice that that brings up 6 lines of code. And I've tested this before on 25. This will actually, you'll see a little bit of a dip. It'll start to dip, maybe I'd say about 6 or 7 pixels before the gradient. So if we use 25, it's going to be too much. So you have a choice here. Now you can do this, separate it where it's not going to use anything on the right hand side, and you'll have 6 lines of code, or you can drop this down to 17 on each corner, and that'll also give you, that'll give you 3 lines of code, and you won't see it on the other side. But this left hand corner will be slightly less rounded. Personally, I would rather add the extra code if it's going to be that way, because everything else is 25. Now, one thing you notice, if you look at this, you'll notice that a lot of your iPhone type text messages look just like this. And you can lengthen or shorten these divs. So that's one thing that, this is a real easy way to get a really nice little effect going inside your site. If you have something that you want to pop out into like almost a fake cartoon bubble, this is an easy way to do it. All right. So what we'll do is we'll actually go ahead and, make that 0. So we'll copy this, and we'll go to our style sheet, our content. All right, and we'll indent those, save, and we'll refresh. Oops, wrong site. Refresh this site. There we go. All right, so now you see you've got the nice curves on the left-hand side, but you've also got, squared off on the right-hand side, which is what we expected. Now let's just say, and again, this is for demonstration purposes only, we're going to make some funky gradients because there's just, I want you to be able to see them. So I want you to be able to see the text, and I also want you to be able to see what the gradient does. All right, so what I'm going to use is a 3-stop gradient. All right, and the first one, we're also going to make return. All right, so we're going to copy this. All right. Then we're going to make sure that this is the same stop. All right, so it's going to start to one and come back to the other. All right, and that's a little bit too blue. There we go. That's a nice little blue. All right, so then you go ahead and copy it. And we'll add that to the bottom of the content, and that'll be our background. All right. Now, we previously styled this with white. If none of these browsers will pick up on it, if any of these are invalid in the browser that's being viewed, it'll revert back to the standard white. Okay, so that's one way to have a fallback. So we'll go ahead and save that. We'll go back to our site and refresh. And there you see that nice little gradient built into the background of the div. All right. So if you want to change things up a little bit, we can actually change this to a horizontal. All right, and then we'll go ahead and copy that, and we'll change it here. Get the indent going. Save. All right, and now you see that blue is kind of centered down the middle. All right. So that's a real quick, easy way, and these are two great tools to make your code that much better. And there's one thing that you'll notice about your sites when you start to do gradients by using CSS instead of actually an image, using a blank image that's got a nice gradient to it, and then you repeat the image. Your sites are going to load obviously much faster because you're not loading up an image, you're loading up CSS, and the browser can read code much faster than it can read an image and upload the image or bring the image into the browser from the site. Okay, so your performance is going to be much improved. Also, you're going to get a much better control over it by using an editor like the gradient generator. A much nicer control on your gradient levels that you're trying to add to your site. All right, so those are two of my favorite tools: the border radius generator and the gradient generator. So, thanks for watching. Feel free to leave some comments below if you need to ask a question or whatever, and go ahead and subscribe if you like, and we'll have more of these out to you soon. Thanks for watching.